Once there was a man who found a hidden treasure box, and he thought, what is in this? And he opened it up, and what he found was an incredible amount of gold coins. His eyes just grew as he thought about the fortune that he had come upon, and he thought, how am I going to spend it? What am I going to do? How's my life going to change? And then he went to cash it in, and he found out it was all fake. That's when he learned the lesson that many of us have learned in life, and that is that all that glitters is not necessarily gold. We live in a world today where a lot of things aren't real. There's the metaverse where there's virtual reality. There's fake profiles, fake pictures, fake news. We're looking for things today that are actually real, that can be counted on, and what you see is actually what you get. That's going to be the subject of today's episode of the Audacious Faith Podcast. Well, hello and welcome back to the podcast. It's been about 1 year since we started this, and many of you have caught a lot of the episodes. We appreciate it so much. I'm so excited about the guest that we're going to have today. I'm going to introduce him in just a moment. But before I do, can you do me a favor? If you have not yet subscribed to the podcast, can you click that little subscribe button on the channel so that you can make sure you don't miss a single episode? Well, today's title is Keeping It Real, and I've got someone here who I respect very much. I've actually followed him and known him for about 10 years now. Very successful in business, also a great family man, and a real genuine people person. He's even referred to as the Real Crusader, so it's very, very fitting as we have our subject of keeping it real today, and that is Mr. Jun Dela Cruz. Thanks so much for joining us and allowing us to be in your home. We appreciate that so much.
Sure. I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much. It's obviously a great opportunity for us to get together and spend some time and share some words today.
Absolutely. Well, we want to start off right off the bat. Maybe some people know you, but there's probably people that are watching out there that don't. So maybe give us a little bit of a background, kind of how you grew up, family then and now. And maybe also, I'm throwing a lot at you at the moment, but kind of how God has played a role in your life, bringing you up to this point.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. Great question. I grew up, I'm Filipino, and parents immigrated to America when I was like 2 months old, and we lived in Minnesota for the first 7 years of our life. And I realized early on I thought I was Polish because I lived in a Polish community.
Oh, nice.
But religion was a big deal for us. We always went to church. Bible study was a big deal. And so the Bible was always a premise of our conversation, especially when it came to Sunday. That was like the reset day.
Yeah.
And we moved to California. I realized, I'm not Polish, I'm Filipino. And where I grew up in Cerritos, California, is a big Filipino religious community. And so we're very active, not just through church, but a lot of Bible studies and a lot of just prayer groups, et cetera, et cetera. So I grew around that, the faith.
Okay.
And I was blessed because I went to a Catholic grade school and then high school, St. John Bosco High School. And so I was always around it. In fact, there was a certain time in my life where I actually thought I was going to go into the priesthood, because I just got so close to the Word, the Bible, and I studied it pretty good because I was also on the debate team that really focused on the Bible. So it was kind of neat to be around it. But like anything else, growing in Southern California, I had a typical family. If you want to look at it that way, my mom was a nurse. My dad was in insurance and real estate as well, and so they ran a business. And I thought we were pretty average and ordinary in a lot of different ways. But one thing that probably helped me grow up faster than normal is my parents got sick early on. My dad developed cancer, a few forms of cancer through his life. And because of that, I didn't know how long my parents were going to be around. And so we prayed more than we usually do because you're praying for his health and well-being. And then, of course, you pray for his family. And so we're around a lot of good, respected, religious, well-to-do people as well. And so fortunately, with the blessings that we were given, my parents survived through my childhood and my teenage years. But the neat thing about it is I got to experience a lot more early on than most people do.
Yeah.
And because of that, I got to see the world differently. Hence one of the reasons why I wanted to get into financial services too, because I saw what drove families together, but I also found what drove families apart. And a lot of it had to do with finances too.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I got into the family business of real estate and hence got into the business that I'm in today. But I think the neat part about it is we learned early on about faith and family and finance. Those were the three things that I was raised upon. And it was, my dad used to call it the reset button. At the end of the day, good day, bad day, go back to your faith. Like, thank God. Or if things are uncomfortable, go back and go look at your relationship with God. Look at your faith. And then from there, the most important thing earthly is your family. And so that's why we're always family centric, or faith or family centric.
Right.
And then from there he goes, everything else you do is going to be your business, because that's going to be what's going to go pay the way. And everything outside of faith, family, and finance, that was just literally temporary, he would tell us. And then when I found the business model that I'm in today, it was kind of weird, because this business took it a little further. They actually talk about faith, family, finance, fitness, fun, philanthropy, and focus. So it was like, wow, talk about a perfect match. A lot of F's there.
S and P's there.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, talk about a perfect match. And so to me, I fell in love with this business that I'm in. Been here for 27 plus years now. And I just turned 51 a few days ago. And I feel like, yeah, I'm living that life that I always dreamed about since I was growing up. Where my dad said, always stay humble, always know that your guiding light is going to be God, that you are we're a spiritual being having a physical experience here on earth. And that's exactly what we're doing. Enjoy that, know that all this stuff will be taken away from you one day, not if, it will be taken away.
Sure.
And so the most important thing you got to have is that spirit. And so I'm always a person that looks for people with a spirit. You obviously, your son as well, and others. And I'm attracted to people that have a spirit about them, and you could just feel it. They don't have to say anything, just feel it.
Right.
Not necessarily in their words, but just the way they move, the way they talk, the way they're around people. And so to me, that's kind of been my guiding light throughout life up to this point. And I think obviously it's been a blessing in a lot of different ways. I've met a lot of wonderful people that are strong in not only character, and a lot of human traits of family and business, etc.
Yeah.
But to find someone that has that spiritual prowess about them, to me, that's like a big package. That's a big package that I like to follow.
Awesome. I love the story and I love the background. Let's take a little journey back, though. We're going to take a little time machine right now. And I mean, you hear this a lot today, but for you, let's say if you traveled back right now to your 18th birthday. And so you meet the 18-year-old Jun Dela Cruz.
Wow.
All right. What does that guy look like compared to today?
Wow. Great question. It's funny. I actually pulled up that photo of my 18th birthday. We were at a teppanyaki place called Sumo's in Long Beach.
Okay.
And I stared at that photo for probably a good 2-3 minutes. And because a lot of things go in your head as to who I was and where I was then, and obviously where I'm at now. And I think looking back, if I were to talk to that person, I would talk to that person about staying ambitious, and not just ambitious financially, but ambitious with your faith, ambitious with your family time, ambitious with meeting the right person, ambitious with spending time with your family and finding the right people through that journey of life. And take a lot of risks early on. I think it shapes and molds who you are later on in life. And I think that's one of the reasons why I had the success today, because I had a lot of failures growing up. I learned what was right from wrong, not from what people told me, but from what I experienced. And I will tell you this, that I think in retrospect, because I spent a few minutes afterwards going, well, how would that 18-year-old look at me today? He'd obviously say I'm a little bit heavier than I was back then.
Okay.
But outside of that, he'd say, you know what, you're on the right path. Keep going, because life is a journey. And all I know is, like, now that I'm 51 years old, I'm realizing I am very happy because I was in control. I was in control of my decision making. I'm in control of my faith, my family, my finance, all the things that really shaped who I am. And I think being in control is something that my mentor taught me early on too. But that to me is probably the most important thing at this stage of my life. Before we obviously got here, we were having a little meal here earlier. We were talking about things we can't control with COVID, et cetera, et cetera. And we can't control that, but what we got to be able to do is just keep going,
Right.
And so if you ask me, when it comes to that 18-year-old kid, it's a picture where, when you see that person, you're like, wow, I can't believe. I'm kind of lost here with this one. I'm kind of lost with this question here. At first, when you talk to an 18-year-old, you're like, I remember that kid that wanted the car, the house, the travel, the plane, et cetera, et cetera. And then as you go through life, you realize all that's great, but all that stuff doesn't matter. Materialism is nice, but really what it is that peace of mind.
Sure.
Really what it is that sense of accomplishment of making a difference with the right people in your circle, your family, being able to help your parents. Both my parents have passed away. And so when I was 18, my grandparents were dying at the time, and I witnessed my parents take care of them. And it's weird because I've come full circle. My dad passed away, I think, about 11 years ago. My mom, 2 years ago. And I did all I could to take care of them. And so when I look at that 18-year-old kid, I'm going, you got to take care of your parents, just like your parents took care of their parents. And now that I'm 51, looking back down, going, wow, you know, I am glad that I was able to take care of my parents the way I did, because I want to make sure that one day, if I'm not here, or if I do have the blessing of being old, that my kids were able to witness me taking care of my parents, that they'll do the same for us. Kind of like a rite of passage in that way.
You know, let's talk about that, because you bring that up, and I think that's a pretty special thing that you were able to do. How did it feel? I mean, what did it mean to you to be able to have that opportunity, to not only have some time to take care of them and prioritize that, but also in some ways have the means to be able to at least do what you could? Obviously, humanly, we can only do so much.
Right.
But what did that mean to you to be able to do that for them?
You know, looking back now, it's obviously very priceless in so many ways. My dad, being a businessman, he was always saying, just live humbly, live way below your means. He taught me that financially. And my mom was always that loving, you know, love you no matter what, you know, kiss you on the way out, kiss you when you get home, and very motherly. And so my dad would always tell me, every family's different. Always remember that. And stop looking outside at other families. You pay attention to what our family tells you, or our family does. And I learned that early on before I had a family, which made a difference in my family today. Meaning this, we spend a lot of time together, you know. I love how in America you raise your family, and then I know a lot of friends that I know that as soon as the kids get to high school or college, they're ready to get out and go into the world and never come back home per se. And they leave this big old empty home, and they just never seem to come back except for a vacation or a visit here and there. And that's not what my parents wanted to do for us. They wanted to keep us kind of close. And hence, when I got married as well, my wife and I both talked about it, like, no, we want to keep our kids close. Now, if they want to go venture out, it's up to them, but ideally, we like to spend more time with them, because at the end of the day, family does come first. And as my parents got older in life, they started having health challenges. And although they were in the midst of traveling and doing a bunch of other things, they also realized that's a time that they got to spend more time with the family. And we were blessed because we were able to take my parents into the house. My dad was dealing with something called multiple myeloma, bone cancer. It was very, very tough. He was given about a month to live, and we were able to survive him for 30 months. And we did a lot of homeopathic, holistic stuff. But I think the reality of why he lasted as long as he was is because he wasn't institutionalized. He was here in the home. In fact, I ended up saying my dad ended up passing away in the bedroom downstairs, but we watched wrestling, which he loved to do, 3-4 times a week. We went to church together, or we ate together, and because of the kids and the family, we were able to spend a lot of time. During that time as well too, I had a thriving business, and I was thinking about going out there and building a home. But my dad would always say, why do you need a bigger house when you have a beautiful home? And I remember one night he explained to me the difference between a house and a home. And he goes, don't get caught up in thinking that bigger is better. Because I live in Southern Cal, where people want to have a bigger home. And I realized at that point, you're right. It's not the house. It's what you do and make it a home. And our house is a home in a lot of ways. We have, you know, if you could tell, looking at our house, Jay, it may look nice on camera, but there's a lot of like spots where there's kids have done things where they've boogers here and
all the good stuff.
All the good stuff, right? It's a lived in, and we don't have a few people come to our home. We have not even a few hundred. We have like thousands of people go through our home. It's like the place where everybody wants to go. The kids want to go. We entertain. There's swimming. There's games, et cetera, et cetera. And so because of that, I feel like there's a spirit about our family. And there's a spirit about, we call ourselves the Crusaders, right? And wherever we go, it's like how would you say, it carries in when you come into our home that you know that there's love here. You know that there's a lot of interaction. We do stuff together. Social media shows that too as well. And we go out there and spend time with our kids. We travel with our kids. But I think the neatest part about it is that in the times where my parents were having medical challenges and dying, basically, we were able to spend time with them because financially we could afford to. And we spent quite a bit of money to survive our parents during that time. And at the end of the day, after he passed, I remember he was telling us before he passed, don't spend the money, just let me go. And we're like, no, Dad, we'll do what we can while we can. And I think living below your means makes a big difference when it comes to that.
Let's tie this in then, because obviously the time was really special that you got to have. And you mentioned about families thing first. A lot of people that end up having success, and you've had, God's blessed you with good success, really good success, they get off. I mean, they start just trying to fill the void with more and more materialistic stuff, and obviously it runs out. It only does so much for you after a while. So why do you think, is it the faith, the grounding, is it that relationship with the parents that have kept you more grounded and not fall into that?
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, early on I was exposed to my parents' friends and just people that were around us in the neighborhoods we lived in. And I saw the rotting of what those material things did for families and the relationships. And I realized there's only so many things you can buy, so many houses you can have, so many purses or watches or cars and clothes. And those to me were very superficial. Yeah. And, you got to go through that phase, especially we're in Southern California, we're in Orange County. So there's that saying of being plastic fantastic. Yeah. But you can see right through that when it comes to character. Yeah. And meeting someone, the handshake, the eye contact, the conversation. I think within a minute or two, you could figure that out. Yeah. But yeah, that makes a huge difference. And so because I saw that, I wanted to make sure I avoid that. One of the reasons why I live in the city we live in is because we felt it was a homegrown city. Although it's Orange County, it's probably the most homegrown city out of Orange County, in my opinion. And so just meeting the neighbors and the people, I love people that live below their means. I love people that there's a lot of depth in the conversation. It's not just about, look at my watch or look at my car or look at this and that. And don't get me wrong, I have nice things too as well. Yeah, sure. But I don't front with it. That's probably the biggest thing. Yeah. I'm actually more comfortable with t-shirt and shorts and, or just wearing a t-shirt. And to me, I think that's probably the biggest difference. And so because of that, I was able to spend more time with my parents because I made good money, but I saved it. That was a big deal. So when I needed it, I was able to bring it out. And naturally, my culture or the friends and the people that I grew up with were not like that. They were spenders. In fact, the culture is a lot of it is you wear what you make. You go out there and you get your nice paycheck and you buy nice jeans or you buy a nice watch or you buy a car, et cetera, and you wear your success. And to an extent, there's a superficial part where that's important, but I also believe there has to be much more than just the watch, the car, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And social media helps, but also hurts it too as well. I think it hurts it because there's so many standards of trying to be like somebody else, right? Be like Mike or be like Kim Kardashian or something like that. And I get that because that's the world we live in. But to me, there's nothing more powerful than meeting someone where you walk away going, wow, that was a great connect. Yeah. And it's not the first and last, that's the first of many. Kind of like how we are, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that's really a lot of the reason why I asked you to do this interview.
Gotcha.
Because there's a lot of people in business, a lot of people that have success, and you hear the goals that people have, and obviously we're not knocking anybody's goals, but I think some people are misled in the sense that they're thinking, oh, if I just make this amount of money, if I'm just able to get that house, if I'm just able to get this, then I'm going to be happy. But one of my mentors in business that you know, Dan Charlier, he said to me once, he said, well, that's your problem. You need to be happy now. You need to make a choice. So have you done that all along the way? I mean, in every state that you've been in, I mean, you've found a way to be happy and be present in the moment instead of always looking to something else?
Yeah, I got to admit, when I first came in the company too as well, I was the young whippersnapper coming on in, and you wanted the big base shop, you want the hierarchy, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And that's wonderful because that's what the business allows you to do, just like a sport or just like any business that's out there. Yeah. But there comes a point when you look at the bigger picture and realize, okay, outside of the business, who are you? If you take out the suit of your company or you take out you're an athlete, you take out the jersey, who are you as an individual? Yeah. And that's what's going to be that's what's going to be the shining light and the everlasting light after when it's all said and done, the impact you leave on people. And so I never lost sight of that. I realized, although I joined the business, I joined the business for my family, not the other way around. Okay. And so to me, everything I do is for my family. That's the way I am. Yes, I've seen people, I've witnessed it, unfortunately, where people have lost their families in business, not just this business, many other businesses out there because their career came first. Yeah. And I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that for them because that's their choice, but you got to go live with the decisions you make. My decision was not that. My decision was, no, my family is the most important thing to me, and I do the business because of my family. And so because of that, I'm able to reset myself and find happiness all the time. And so at every stage so far of my business, when I had no money, or I was hustling for money, or now that I have money, I'm happy. I think I'm a person that whether I have money or not, I'm okay because I understand how the cycle of money works. Yeah. And so if you live below your means and you obviously never forget where you come from, obviously, thank God and thank your family and thank all the blessings because I already know it's going to be taken away one day. I mean, I'm talking that from a spiritual and
Sure.
a physical being. And so to me, it's like, okay, knowing that, then I have to not only count my blessings, but I also got to go out there and keep paying it forward, because I got to know that there's a ripple effect of what I do with other people. And I think a lot of times, especially right now, that's what gets a lot of people. And that's why people only have one good month or a good year, right? Or like in sports, have one good season.
Yeah.
It's because they're short-sighted as to looking at the bigger picture and what's out there.
Now, the Real Crusader is something that you've been referred to as for quite a long time, right?
Right.
What does that mean? What was the meaning behind it, and what does it mean to you?
It was weird because I got an award, I think it was like 96 or 97. It was called the Crusader Award.
Okay.
And it was spelled with an S. That's what Crusader is, right? It was a shield. And the person who gave me the plaque actually changed it and put Z. Unknowingly or mistakenly, I'm not sure it was. So it was a Crusader Award. I'm like, oh, kind of cliche because my last name's Dela Cruz.
Yeah, okay.
There you
I
go.
see that. Yeah.
And so from there, it was a Crusader. And then because that award was given out to different teams as well as different leaders in the company, there was other Crusaders out there.
Okay.
So on stage, I remember going on stage, and this little old lady in the hallway goes, "Oh, there he is, the Real Crusader." And so when I got up on stage and spoke at convention that one year, I remember them saying, give your moniker. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm Jun Dela Cruz, a.k.a. the Real Crusader." And ever since then, I think that was like 97 or 98, it's stuck with me ever since then. And so that's how it came about, and I've kept it ever since. And when people talk about that, that puts me in that reset mindset that we talk about, where everything to me is a blessing here. And for me to continue my blessing, I got to keep giving to other people. Because I get that a lot. "Oh, you're so blessed." I'm like, I'm blessed because I keep paying it forward.
Yeah.
You're right. I am blessed. I appreciate you telling me that. But it's because I keep paying it forward. That's why when I had no money, I worked. But also when I have money, I work harder. Because I wouldn't have what I have today. And if it wasn't for the people that have helped me get here. And so I got to continue to work harder so I can help others get to where they want to go. So to me, it's like that full circle part of understanding that. So whenever I think about the Real Crusader, that moniker, that's what gets me focused. That's what gets me going again. And more importantly, that's what I become.
It's amazing how often something like that becomes so much a part of somebody, out of nowhere, just came from somebody else almost randomly, and as soon as you hear it, it just kind of clicks.
Yeah,
and
a stranger too. It was a stranger.
So you didn't even know her?
No, I didn't know her. This little old lady just pointed at me and says, "You're the Real Crusader," and I was literally headed to stage, and I've never knew who she was.
She probably doesn't even know. If you asked her today, she doesn't even know why she said that.
Exactly.
And that just kind of came, and it was meant to be. So that's pretty awesome. Let me ask you. You just mentioned something about paying things forward and blessing. Now, a lot of people in life will call that karma, which is kind of what you throw out there, and then it comes back. And usually, the concept of karma is like something you did in the past life now is hitting in this life. But from a spiritual perspective, a God perspective, obviously the Bible does say, and I do believe this very strongly, that what a person sows, they end up reaping.
Yeah.
So does that stick in your mind? You mentioned you definitely are known as a people person, not just family, but you genuinely like other people. Is that something you just really stay conscious about?
I do. I was a little kid. I was a naughty boy growing up, and my parents would always tell me, "One day when you have kids, you'll understand." And of course, we all say that, right? And of course, when you're a kid, you're like, "I don't understand what I'm talking about." But of course, the moment I started having kids, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. I'm like, that's exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Life does come full circle at you. And so I realized more than as soon as I had children that I got to go out there and do what's right, because it will come back full circle for righteousness.
Yeah.
But if I go out there and do things, let's say wrong or back then it was naughty, it would come back naughty later on. So as I got older and more mature and I started realizing how the world works, I wanted to go out there and make sure that I was planting good seeds out there so that one day I'll be able to harvest them.
Yeah.
And not just in my life, but also in the life of my children and so on.
Yeah.
And so I believe in that. I do believe in good karma, and I also believe in bad karma too as well. And so it is what it is. Like, a guy bumps your car. I always have things happen to me, and people are like, "Why don't you get upset?" I go, "That's their karma, not mine." Or I've had people yell at me or cuss me out, and I look at them and smile and laugh, and they're like, "You're not mad?" I go, "Well, it's their karma, not mine, and they're having a bad day. Why am I going to let them ruin my day?"
Yeah.
And
true.
so it doesn't happen all the time, but when I'm in the right mindset, I think about that and go, that's not my issue. I'm having a good day. I'm not going to let them, affect my day. And so I think keeping it simple, keeping it real, and also having minimal things in life, meaning I don't have my hands into too many things. I have a few hobbies. I like to bike now.
Okay.
I do work out, although it doesn't show. I do work out. I like guns. I like cars. I like to spend time watching movies. And so I have little hobbies here and there. I like to travel. But I think keeping my life simple and family-centric, these are all hobbies that I do with my family, right? And close friends. It keeps me real and it keeps me grounded. And so it lets my ambition continue to grow. And the ambition's not always financial. A lot of my ambition is, well, what do we want to experience with our family this year, right? Where do I want to get my kids' mindset this year? Where spiritually do we need to be so they understand the next phase of our life?
Okay.
I had a birthday just this past week. And one of the things I asked for my kids, I said, I don't like gifts. I like cards because I can always go back to and read the cards, which I do. I have a whole drawer full of cards. But we have our family meeting. We call it the Crusader base shop meeting. And it was a few hours. And we went to eat, came back, and we talked about like the next phase. We talked about how we lived in our house here for 17 years. And when we moved here 17 years ago, we were going to raise our kids. Okay. And here we are in our last month of that phase. And have we been tempted to move? Absolutely. But fortunately we haven't. But we're excited because we could do whatever we want, knowing that we accomplished this chapter of our life, going to the next chapter. So the kids now know what's next. And so being able to reset, refocus, and then recharge and go after the next chapter is what keeps us going, keeps us moving. Yeah. And so to me, that cycle really makes a difference in how we push forward.
Awesome. So we've talked a lot about family already today, which I absolutely love. And I think we've talked before off camera about how some people just don't keep that priority. They get caught up in the hunt, caught up in the chase, and probably unintentional in a lot of cases, but before they know it, something goes wrong, terribly wrong. You've managed, by the grace of God, not to have that happen in your life. Are there some lessons or some things that you go by that you try to remember to prevent that crash and burn type scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I teach their own. Everybody has their level of success, and their definition of success is different. Some are financial, some are spiritual, some are like the entire picture. I was blessed because early on as a child, I was exposed to people's success and failures too. So I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly in business and in family. And so as I was coming up, I'm like, I'm not going to work this hard to go lose all I built, right? Okay. And so I remember my dad raised me early on some premise, and he shared something called the 4 Gs with me. Okay. And I didn't really understand him early on, but as I got older and more mature and became more successful, they became very eminent. He says, you want to become successful in life and happy in life, you got to avoid these 4 things. I'm like, okay, what are they? And he's like saying, okay, girls. So it depends on your sexual preference, but girls. Okay. I say, okay. He goes, one wife, and you have lots of hobbies. And I go, okay, there you go. And that's one of the reasons why we're very successful is I'm married and I have lots of hobbies, biking and working out and all those things. Sure. Then he said, greed. Stay away from greed. Stay away from greedy people. Stay away from wanting too much. All the eggs in one basket. Just greed is just bad. Okay. And he goes, you won't see it until it's in front of you. Then you know it's there. Sometimes it's too late to back off. But if you're smart enough, you'll be able to recognize it and run the other way and don't turn back. The other one's gambling. And being Filipino, a lot of Filipinos gamble. I don't gamble. I think I've gambled once in 25 years, and that's only because we were in line at a buffet, and my wife wanted to put a few bucks inside a machine. But I don't also mean just gambling in Vegas. I also mean gambling your 401k, gambling your assets, gambling just your livelihood. I've seen people use their home equity as a source of doing other stuff. That's great, but that's just not what I think is righteous. Okay. And so girls, greed, gambling, and then the last thing is there's a word in Tagalog named gagu. Gagu means, how you say, dumb. And it's just making dumb decisions. He goes, it's like that. There's a saying that says, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, then don't go to Vegas. That's just what it comes down to. Good choice. And so just avoid those things. Nothing good happens after midnight kind of thing. I teach that to my kids. Same thing here too as well. And so I realized that the people that I saw successful were the ones that avoided these ditches. But the people that I saw got caught and, if you say, slipped on their success or maybe lost their success or just start tumbling down, it's because they were caught by one of these 4 Gs. The weird thing was, I've not only learned it from my dad, but I learned that from a few other people, a pastor that lives here locally, and a few other friends. And so whenever I hear it, although it's not exactly the same, it's that in itself to me that's become the premise of me staying focused, staying true, and then going back to what I was saying earlier, learning to reset and get back to that faith and family. That's a great check. That's, if you look at it, you spin those plates. You spin your plate of faith, you spin your plate of family and finance and fitness, and you're never going to find a balance in all that. But it's that drive to wake up. The drive to wake up to go get that balance. Like, you know what? I haven't spent too much time with my church or my faith. I need to focus more on this.
Yeah.
Or you know what? I haven't done a lot of philanthropy lately. Let me get back focused on that. Or you know what? I haven't dated my girls. Let me go back and date my girls. Or you know what? I haven't taken my wife out in a week. Let me go back to that. So I wake up, and as simple as those 7 F's are to me, and the last one being focus, meaning I love being around focused people because it makes me more focused.
Yeah.
Like, obviously you're very spiritual. I know your background.
I
love your,
try to be. Yeah.
Well, you are. Just you're a walking, talking, and it's an eminent of your son too as well. When I see your son, it's like, come on. I love that you're a junior. I'm actually the 7th. I don't know if I told you that. My real name is Teofilo M. Dela Cruz Jr. And so when you think about juniors and you think about family and how that is, you can see your son in you. Although I knew your son more than you, but the more I got to know you, social media, a few conversations, just through text, you can see why he is the way he is. And to me, going back to what you were saying earlier about cause and effect or coming full circle, that's a blessing. That's karma. That's positive karma right there.
It is.
And so, yeah.
And I like your comment. In fact, if my kids are listening, I want them to pick up, rewind, and hear what he said about not needing to do things after midnight. We used to talk about that.
Yeah.
If you had to wait till after midnight and you couldn't do it before midnight, it's probably not good.
That's right. That's right. And it's funny how those lessons, they don't make sense growing up, but you can recall it in an instant. The moment something happens, you're like, wow, mom or dad said that.
Yeah.
And it is true. I find myself saying things my parents told me 20, 30, 40 years ago.
So you look in the mirror now and all of a sudden you see your dad or your mom?
I do.
What you're saying.
Not only that, I vividly talk to my dad more than my mom, if you would say, because we just have more conversations, but I vividly talk to him when I drive. Like when I'm driving, you can catch me talking.
Okay.
And people next to me are like, what the heck is that? Is he singing? No, I'm talking to my dad.
Got
That's kind of the weirdest part about me, but that's my happy place. That's why I could get in my cars, just different cars, and drive. And whether I drive just to get gas or I jump on the freeway for an exit or two, it's like my happy place to talk. And it goes back to what we're saying is that, you don't think your kids remember the things you tell them, but they actually do. They archive it.
Right.
They don't want to tell you that, but they archive it. And it comes out, hopefully in their lifetime, but sometimes after you pass is when it really comes out. And it's come out like that with me. I catch myself going, oh my gosh, my dad told me that 20, 30, 40 years ago, and here I am saying it to my kids, exactly verbatim how they told me.
That's the way you know it, and that's the way you live it, right?
Yeah.
Now, speaking of your kids, here's an interesting question for you, and obviously you have a long way to go, more than likely. What do you think they're going to say about you, and what do you want them to say about you?
Ooh, wow, that's a deep question. I know they know. If you ask my kids, does your dad work all the time? What's his priority? Is it business? Is it family? I know for a fact my kids will say family comes first. That's for sure. Like, we have a relationship. I'm blessed that I have a relationship with each of my kids. And with children, it's not quality, it's quantity at first. And later on, as they get older, when they don't want to spend as much time, it becomes quality.
Yeah.
And to me, I always realize it's not just a conversation up in the staircase, driving a car. It's on the golf course. It's at a restaurant. It's holding hands, going through an airport or whatever. And so I realize those are those moments you live for. So I know that my kids don't say that, yeah, dad works really hard, but above that, he loves his wife, their mom, and more importantly, the kids. And that family comes first. And if you ask them about faith and family and finance, they know that's where our focus is.
Right.
And that if you change it out of that order of those first three, you can start to get out of whack. And so that's what I'd like them to say. The second part you said was...
well, that's what you like them to say. And what do you
oh, what I think I was saying.
Kind of mixed
that's right. I mixed it up. You're right.
Yeah, you kind of mixed
That's
it
what
up.
I think they'd say.
Okay.
Now, what do I want them to say? Whatever they really feel. I mean, I can control how I influence them and what I do. And I think, to me, that's more than enough for me because they're a reflection of whatever I share with them. So, yeah, it's kind of a singly loaded question for me on that.
No, it's fine. And you mentioned earlier when we were talking off camera about how you very much speak about family a lot.
Yeah.
You put family out there a lot.
I do.
As a priority. And some people don't necessarily like that. And of course, it's because maybe what they're dealing with in their own life. And we're seeing that more and more in society, where the family's being, the importance of it.
Yeah, it's being challenged.
Yeah, it's being challenged, and it's more than likely because a lot of people have just been so unhappy and disappointed with things that have happened in their life. You've resisted the temptation to shrink to please others in that area.
Yeah.
Why is that?
You know, I've always gone against the grain. A lot of I look, first of all, ever since I was a kid, I looked different, I talked different, I was just different. And I didn't want to be like other people. And not only was that an actual thing for me, it was a mental thing. My dad always said, you got to go against the grain. And a lot of our principles we learn in our businesses, don't go with the flow of everybody. You know, don't go the shallow end of the pool, go the deep end. It's where it's less crowded. And so my mindset was always to think differently. And so because of that, one of the things I realized is, you know, you work so hard for your family, that needs to be the most important thing on earth. Because at the end of the day, and I've unfortunately and fortunately been around people in their last dying breaths, including my dad. I remember my dad's last words to me, families come first. In the last few months before he passed, we had lots of friends and partners that wanted to come see him. He didn't want to see him anymore. And he goes, the only person he wanted to see was literally just me, my sister, and our families, and that was it. And I was like, wow, I was kind of taken back because my dad was so social, kind of like how I am. And but if you ask me, at the end of the day, for me, the only thing that matters is my family. I was hospitalized for the first time in my life, late December, COVID. And I was in the hospital, and you know, your family can't come in, et cetera, et cetera. And I was there for only 2.5 days, fortunately. But those 2.5 days, Jay, man, that literally shaped and changed my entire mindset. Because I, of course, had crazy thoughts. You know, what if this is the last time I'm going to see my family? Or what if I don't see my family anymore? But I realized no one in the world at that moment mattered to me more than seeing my wife and my 4 kids. Like, if I don't see anybody else, I'm okay. But it was those 4, or those 5, that made, like, that really marks the difference. So because of that, I have even a renewed faith to focus more on my family and have build a deeper relationship with them, so that when I go, it's not if I go, when I go, it's hopefully not soon, that they'll still keep my spirit alive, you know, through their actions and what they do. And so to me, that's kind of why I'm able to focus so much on my family and why I want to do it. Friends come and go, as we all know. Hobbies are great, and I make sure I have hobbies that are what I call progressive. That means I can keep doing them over and over again as I get older. And pretty safe when I do them. But more importantly, it's just like, it goes back to, that's what allows me to reset. I know I keep saying that, but you know, being able to wake up, see my wife next to me, and being able to go to sleep, knowing that we can sleep in peace, not worry about bills, not worry about outside stuff. That's like, to me, what happiness is. That's what peace of mind is. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, they're not able to accomplish that because there's a lot of financial stress out there. And I know I've lived here for 17 years, and just in my own neighborhood and my friends, I've seen a lot of people come and go. Some made a lot more money than I did, but they didn't have it together in the family. And then I saw a lot of people that did make a lot of money, and they were stretching to live here. And you could see it was just a matter of time before they lost their house, which they did. But I realized, you know, if you have a strength about you, a spirit about you of your faith, and a strength of doing it for your family, man, those are all a byproduct. That's all that matters. You do that, you're going to be golden. And so I love being around others that are like that. And they're hard to come by. And this conversation is not an easy conversation because, you know, most people are exchanging time for money. But I always tell people it's not time or money that's important. It's having both time and money. You know, I have friends that make way more than me, but man, they're working at 6 a.m, driving through Southern California traffic. And I'm like, hey, you make more money than me, but man, you don't spend time. How often do you see your wife or your kids? And a lot of them barely have the ability to spend time, let alone have a relationship. You know, a relationship's not one meal a week. You can ask my kids. They would probably tell you every day there's a moment between me and my kids at some moment. Sometime throughout the day, and to me that's invaluable.
That's great.
Definitely a lost art in the world we live in.
It is. And I mean, you can look at it and look at business and everything, and I'm sure that if it was important enough to you, there are changes that you could make to even increase income. But it's not the priority.
If I could share something, you know, I have lots of friends that moved out of the area, out of state, or even got a bigger home this last year because of COVID.
Yeah.
I guess because a lot of times you're spending more time at home.
Yeah.
And, I heard that, I said it earlier, bigger is not necessarily better. I had friends that had problems maritally and also their kids, and they thought buying a bigger home would solve that because there's more space. Well, no, I think that now they have a bigger financial problem.
Yeah.
Because I have friends that did move to a bigger home and now they're divorcing or gone, or not there, or moving out of state. Obviously some for the right reasons, but others thinking that just getting away from California would do it because it's the governor's fault or it's COVID, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if that problem is in your family and you move somewhere else, it doesn't matter what state you go to, where you go, it's still going to be there.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately people don't come to realize that. And so it goes back to what we said is there's not enough people that talk about faith and family. Those two things to me, and then of course finance, those are three, to me, pivotal things that where I'm looking for people that are equally yoked or balanced in life or happy. I find those three things being very eminent in their life. They have a balance of their faith, their family, and their finance. I had a friend of mine just text me earlier today. I wished him happy birthday, and he's like, how do you keep it together? He goes, I watch you on social media, your business. He goes, you got another car, and da-da-da. How do you do all you do? And I'm sitting there going, well, number one, you got to make the decision of where you're going to put your energy because we all have 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
By the same token, you got to also surround yourself with good people that are progressive in those areas. I'm blessed that I have mentors that have coached and mentored me, or I can be become a little bit more iconic, where I can copy what they're doing.
Yeah. Because
they are heading the right direction. I go, exchanging time for money was to me already that's a ingredient for losing.
Yeah.
Your family loses the most.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you work 40 hours a week, you want to make more money, you're going to work 60. You make more money, you work 80. But then what are you giving up?
Yeah.
Family usually. And what comes after that? Or what's the more faith? So I believe that that's what it is. And so I have this visual, I remember used to say growing up, everybody wants to have faith, family, and finance. But the problem is it's turned upside down. You're going chasing the coin, making more money. You chase the coin, making more money, then you're giving up family time. And if you're giving up family time, they're farther from God.
Yeah.
They're not God-centered. And so you got to turn that thing around and realize you're doing it for God, right? You're through your faith, and obviously you're doing it for your family. If you do those two things, somehow doors open when it comes to your finances, and you think differently.
You're completely right.
Yeah.
It is upside down most
Right.
of the time.
Even
if it's not on purpose. It just
Absolutely.
ends up being that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
In the time that remains, hopefully a long time, do you have any sense of what's next? I mean, I don't think you're a person to just stand pat.
Yeah.
So what's in there?
A huge question. We talk about chapters, and we're finishing a chapter raising all our children out of this home, and whether we stay or not, still a question we're going to answer on July 1st. We talked this year, and at this point, we're staying here. We're not moving out of state, although we've delved into all these options of what's out there.
Yeah.
But the next chapter for me, I break it down to different categories. Like, what's my next chapter of faith? Well, I didn't share this earlier, but I've always wanted to share the pulpit.
Okay.
Before, I wanted to be a priest, and I actually went through a weekend seminary at St. John Bosco, and I was there.
Okay.
And at a time, I was thinking about that, and of course, the one thing that got me was I wanted to have children. And at the time, maybe even now, you can't be a priest and have children.
Right.
So that became a non-option for me because I wanted kids.
Okay.
And so later on, as I started to meet different people of influence, pastors became good friends as well. They're like, one day. And I'm like, okay. They said, well, when? And I said, 55. And I've been saying that now for 30 years. And I'm 51 now, so I have 4 years to go. I said, I'm going to definitely look into that when I'm 55. And I would love to add that to who I am, because at that stage of my life going forward, it is my spiritual being, and take my life experience and share that with a lot of people. So faith, that chapter, I'm excited. So yes, I do have a plan.
Okay.
When it comes to family, it's literally now instead of just raising my kids in a household and taking care of their food on the table and the roof on their head, et cetera, it's now, what do you guys want to become? What's God's gift for you guys as far as careers? And let me help you how you want to be helped. And so the good thing is all of my kids are entrepreneur-like. They all want to do different things. And so that powwow we had on my birthday a few days ago, we talked about us being the Crusaders, that they're going to have different divisions of their business, and we're going to support each other.
Nice.
They're not the traditional kids that wanted to go to a traditional college, although some are going just for classes, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
It seems like their aspirations right now are all business-minded. And I think a big part of it's because they see their parents and our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And they also see their friends and their parents and their lifestyle. So they're able to compare, and they're able to obviously use their discernment and figure out what they want to go do. So this next chapter is me spending time helping them get off the ground, invest into their business, or help them, direct them as to where they want to go. I'm blessed that my oldest son, Justin, is in our business that we're in right now. And so we've had the blessing of working together the last 6 years now. And where a lot of parents send their kids off to college to learn from professors and degrees, he went to University of Dad, Real Crusader.
It's a good university.
Yeah, and he had the best mentor and coach. He wouldn't always agree to that all the time, but I wouldn't have it any other way, because I learned probably the most in my life from my dad, and I'm thankful. I'm forever thankful and grateful. And so one blessing I want to do is do the same thing for my 4 kids. So when it comes to faith and family, that's where that's at. My wife and I just, what she wants to do is travel and spend time with family. We're on the same page there. You know, we're in this whole simple era where we don't need a lot of things materially to keep us happy. It's more conversation. It's the relationship. So yeah, I have all these things that are I'm focused on. Faith and family are there. And when it comes to business, I find a new switch, which I just started with COVID and business model change in this past few years. The great thing is I'm able to move to a different stage of my career and really help my leaders get to where they want to go. So kind of parallel to how I'm helping my kids get to where they want to go,
right?
I'm doing the same thing in business, you know? So it's kind of neat. It's all working parallel, you know?
So you've just laid out the whole biblical system, okay? And you started mentioning from your parents, who I'm sure learned from theirs.
Yes, absolutely.
And then imparted those, that wisdom to you, which now you've been able to impart to your kids,
right,
with the goal of them eventually being able to do the same.
That's true.
And it just keeps on going.
Yeah,
that's the legacy there, right?
The perpetuation is there, and I mean, I have friends that don't have relationships with their parents or their children, and I see the effects of it. You can see that glass wall, or just the blank stare, and it's sad, and nothing wrong with who those people are. But then when I uncover it, I go, wow, that's because dad or mom worked 80, 90 hours a week, and they made more money to have a nice home or a nice house, but they didn't build a home inside it.
Yeah,
it's a nice house, not a home. And so that's probably one of the reasons why I stayed true to where we are and our goals. One thing I'm good at is when we moved in here 17 years ago, we said, we're going to stay here, babe, all the way till we raise our kids out and don't move around like a lot of people do and don't get caught up in all this stuff. And we've done that. And the cool thing is we can do whatever we want going forward. Yet the funniest thing is we don't want to do anything because it is home. Yeah. As you get older, you're just a creature of a habit. Like where do you drive to, and where's the toothpaste, and where's this bedroom, and where's your office, and again all the people that have come through our home, family and friends and business partners over the years.
So all the memories and the connections.
Yeah.
So you're a sentimental type of person?
I definitely have to say I am. And the older I get, I am. They say that's my strength. Sorry. I say that's my strength. People tell me that's my weakness. I could see both. Okay. Because I see how it's a double-edged sword. Because they said, I've had people tell me the reason why you're not successful is because you're stuck in the same house. You need to get a bigger house, challenge yourself. The reason why you're not successful is because of this. I'm like, then to your standards, I'm not, but to my standards, I am.
That was a question I was going to ask you, your strength and weakness. Is that the answer to that? It's the same
That's part of that answer, yeah. Okay. I mean, I'd say that. I think one of my strengths is I love being around people. I love a challenge. I love asking questions and actually doing the opposite, asking questions.
Sure.
I love information. I just love being around people that just, are willing to share, willing to give, and you walking away going, hopefully they became a better person, but I definitely became a better person. That's that kind of relationship I want to have whenever I meet someone. But yeah, I think my biggest strength is that, but I also think that's my weakest too. People tell me I need to be more stern. You let people off the hook. You let your kids off the hook. And I'm like, yeah, but at the same, my take is you can't be everything to everybody. Right. And if I'm going to take a choice, I'm not going to be that stern coach. This is not me. It's not natural for me. I am more natural for me to just shake your hand, say hello, and let's grab a bite to eat or have coffee and have a good conversation. That's just more natural to me. So I learned to bless myself with my natural blessings versus force myself to give me a blessing that's not really naturally me, because you're gonna lose it sooner or later anyway.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. So this is natural for me. Just like I tell you, you're natural at what you're doing right now. Yeah. And I'm comfortable in my shoes where I'm at. I'm happy. Am I content? Of course not. You can't be. because there's always more. The world's moving and evolving. And you got to keep dreaming. You got to keep doing. But I think what happens, instead of being focused on one thing, you get more worldly. And there's a lot more things to focus on. So whereas when I was 20 or 18 years old, when money and success and fame and recognition was big for me, it's less important to me. In fact, I want to do the opposite. I want to be
stages.
I want to be that person no one knows walking down the street kind of thing versus the one that everybody knows. Popularity is not as important.
That's a good question then, because I've asked this to a couple of people and I never get a good answer. So no pressure, but I'm going to ask you. How can a person be content and yet not satisfied?
Being grounded. I mean, I'm sure you heard that answer as well, but let me, my example is this. And it took me years to hear this from multiple people to finally understand what that meant. Every day you wake up and the sun goes up and the sun goes down, and that's your natural reset. And we only have 24 hours in a day, and there's days become weeks, becomes months, become years, becomes decade, then becomes a life.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not, I mean, I understand it's a journey that you take on, and it's going to take you places. But that's if you're going to journey by yourself. But if you're going to journey with family and people of influence, like in a business or your peers, then to me, it's the example you set on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, that really becomes, who you are. And, Rome wasn't built overnight. No one's success built overnight. Anybody can have a good week, a good year, a good 2, 3, 4 years. But to go out there and build something long-term, which is our life is long-term, then you got to have that ability to go out there and be simple and content. Because, we could read about it, you can Google it. There's a lot of success stories for a year, or even 2 or 3.
Right.
But you take people's success that are 10 years, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in their life, most of them led a simple life. It wasn't material driven. It wasn't driven by cars or homes, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's where I believe people that really have a spiritual being about them, they get beyond the material part of it, a part of this world. There's that saying, when you have no money, money seems to be everything. But when you have all the money, you realize money means nothing. And so the reality is when you had nothing is when you really had everything.
That is true.
So I'm a happy camper with no money in my pocket, and I'm a happy camper if I have a lot of money in my pocket. I'm not one of those kind of people that if I have money, I feel good. If I don't have money, I feel grouchy. No, just you got to be happy.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Totally awesome. Well, I want to wrap us up with a question that I'm going to leave kind of open for you.
Okay.
All right. There are people out there right now that are going to watch this. We don't know when. It could be right away. It could be a year from now. Who are seeing this. They're hearing what you said today. They can see the realness of what you're, as this being a part of your life. But they're not happy. Maybe they're feeling a little lost right now. Confused. Maybe family is a mess. Maybe they are even saying to themselves, it would have been really great if I could have done it that way, but now there's too much water under the bridge. Do you have any advice, like some glimmer of hope maybe that you can throw out there for them to kind of make a change from where they are to where they want to be?
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, I want you to know I have dark moments like that, even all the time. Not all the time, but occasionally. And I always go back and say, you can't control where you came from and where you are, but you live 100% of your life in your future. So let's focus on building that future. And so I believe there's a balance between your internal mental self and then your spiritual being. And then, of course, from there it becomes your thoughts every day. And so I always say you got to figure out what seed you plant in your head as to where you want to go. In other words, is this the end? Is this the beginning? Are you optimistic or are you not? And so I would say first thing you got to do is you got to look inside you and say, do you want change? And if you do and you're hungry because you want a better life or you want to get out of the situation you're in, you got to want it first. It's that drill for will first.
Yeah.
And then secondly, what you got to do is get help. I would say that. I would say it's probably the hardest thing for a human being to ask is for help, because you have to go out there and be vulnerable to somebody else. But the reality is that's when the healing process starts. That's probably one thing that I learned to do early on, Jay, that made a huge difference is have the humility to ask for help.
Okay.
And whether it's financial, let's say, or spiritual, I've had to do it before many, many times. And even recently I've had some challenging times in life with passing of friends and certain situations, and I didn't keep it to myself. I had to ask for help. And it's one thing to go out there and talk to yourself, but it's another thing to be able to bounce an idea off someone that has a clearer mindset.
Sure.
Because knowing that they're going to help you and, you know, pick you up, that makes all the difference in the world. So I'd say the first thing you got to do is ask yourself if you want help. And if you do, come to that realization, make that decision, and then from there, go ask for help.
Yeah.
And know that it's not going to be easy in the beginning, but it's going to be definitely worth it. Because why? Life is not about, you know, your ups and downs and falling down and not getting up. It's about how you fall down, knowing that it's up to you to get back up. And when you get back up, you're going to definitely be stronger than before you fell down. That's how life is, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I've totally enjoyed our time today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much, and I know it's going to be extreme value to a lot of people that are going to watch this. How, if someone wants to follow you or even contact you, what's the best way to do that?
Probably Instagram's the easiest way. Instagram, I'm the Real Crusader.
Okay.
THE_REAL_Crusader with a Z. Probably the best way.
Remember with a Z.
With a Z.
That's
there
the
you go.
key thing there.
There you go.
That's why he's the real one, right?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. So this has been a great time together, and I hope that you've benefited from it. Don't forget to subscribe and also share this episode and others with as many people as you know. This has been the Audacious Faith Podcast. God bless you.